Like, I understand the suede is now like this fashion statement, but they're honestly there because you're too poor to buy another jacket.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Leah with another episode of And I Should Care Because, the podcast where we talk about higher ed policy changes and to help you navigate those changes one news story at a time. But ain't no news story today. So we've been doing a series with my good friend Thomas Bertarelli from college. He is currently working in the private sector while finishing his PhD. And if you've been watching the whole series, you'll now know that he had an encounter with something that he truly loved in undergrad that he wasn't expecting, and how he managed to incorporate that into his undergraduate studies. And then he switched fields after graduation, master's, started a PhD program, a little bit of trouble in paradise, wondering whether or not the PhD was a good fit for him. And then we get to, the big comeback. He decided after 3 semesters to return to his PhD program, and we talk about the decision making process for that, why he did it, and what he's getting out of it. It may not be for everyone to, if you do pause your program, to start up again. It is the right call for him, but he had to make some realizations about, you know, what this degree will do for him and what it won't do for him, and he had to be okay with that. So watch this last segment of the interview between myself and my good friend Thomas, and hopefully it will give you some encouragement, it will give you some insight, it will give you some things to think about when you're considering graduate school, or if you're already in graduate school and you're on the fence about things, it'll help you have an idea of what should you really be thinking about and considering, because there's so many parts of your life that are linked to pursuing higher education, that it's just impossible to really sit down and list everything. So hearing his perspective and hearing him reflect on his path hopefully will help you bring more of those things to light so you can consider them as you're making your decisions. So I'll see you back here after you watch the last bit of this intersation conver view thing. You know what I'm talking about. You had this job, you're in it for a while, and then the question of, do I go back? Do I say thanks but no thanks to the PhD program? When did that question start to kind of come back in? Like, am I ready for this? Am I ready to make a decision? And then what was the thought process?
Sure. So the way that my leave was structured was that I could go on leave one semester at a time. Ultimately, I was on leave for 3 semesters, but that's because I had the approval of my department to extend it out that third semester. So really, throughout that time, I was really always in touch with my advisor. Not monthly, not all the time, but at least once a month, just checking in. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts? So I was also really grateful that my advisor also was coming about this from the perspective of trying to figure out what's best for me. So I had that benefit. To be honest, the first semester that I was gone, I just mentally decompressed. Like, I was doing really what I would consider now incredibly boring work. Like, it wasn't mentally stimulating. It wasn't super like engaging. It was nothing like what I had spent the past few years as a graduate student doing. But that's what I wanted. Like, I wanted to be bored. I wanted to clock in at 9, check out at 5, and then just have a life that was something else. So it served that purpose of really allowing me to kind of calm down mentally a little bit and just have that critical distance. Once I did that and I had that distance, I realized that I wanted to finish. I wanted to get my PhD. I had spent so much time kind of pursuing it, and I wanted to do it for myself. The work that I was doing, the work that I'm still doing, doesn't require a PhD. It really doesn't. Like, when I was applying for jobs, like having a PhD, when I was first applying for jobs and leaving academia and I was in a PhD program, like that didn't help me. Like now that I'm in the private sector and I have private sector experience under my belt, it's a nice to have, but is not kind of the reason why I do or do not get a job. Um, and so I made the decision to like start thinking about going back into academia because it really came from a place of self-satisfaction. Like I had put in all this time already. Um, I acknowledged that I may not financially benefit from having a PhD. So, I'm not going to have job opportunities aren't going to open up because of my PhD based on the career that I was envisioning for myself in the private sector. So it really was more so for the gratification of it. Like I was still interested in my topic, my dissertation topic that I had proposed. Um, and I just wanted to see it through, really just for self-satisfaction more so than anything else.
I think that's really cool because I think one of the misconceptions is that if you have a PhD, you're going to be rolling in the dough, and that is so so far from the truth.
Yeah, like also like the image that people have in their mind of somebody who has a PhD, right, is maybe somebody who has like a tweed jacket with like suede elbow patches. Like the suede elbow patches are there to cover up the rips. Like I understand the suede is now like this fashion statement, but they're honestly there because you're too poor to buy another jacket. Like this is not some fashion statement to like emulate and like live up to. Like no, let's not glamorize that, shall we?
That's good. That's good. I mean, reality bites a little bit, but that was funny. So you're back in now and you're going and you're doing your dissertation stuff part-time.
Correct.
What's that like?
What is that like? It can be challenging sometimes. It takes a lot of self-discipline and self-accountability in order to get that work done. So I'm also very fortunate that my dissertation, first of all, like obviously I'm in the social sciences, so I'm not tied to a lab. The work that I do it can be done remotely, so to speak. So I can do it on my own time. So I'm largely interview-based qualitative research. And it takes scheduling, to be quite frank. Like I can't not do my private job, my private sector job, right? I am contractually obligated to, between certain reasonable hours to be at my desk doing work that I need to be doing. And so the PhD really comes around that. I have to find time to make it work, make it fit. But I also have to find ways to stay engaged in the work. So separate from scheduling and finding time for things, technically 9 to 5, I'm no longer around people thinking big thoughts. I'm no longer kind of sitting down in a cafe for 4 to 5 hours reading an interesting new book. I'm further away. So I'm more at a distance from the world of academia. And so that requires a little bit more work on my part to constantly remind myself of why it's a lot of motivation, a lot of scheduling, but a lot of like keeping in mind, like, don't let this drag out. You need to get it done. So really eye on the prize, and at times get, realizing that there are some evenings that I just want to kick back and put my legs up, but it would really be helpful if I just spent a little bit more time writing. So, there's some trade-offs for sure.
And how does that fit with life? Because when you took that first semester of leave, you're like, 5 o'clock, you know what that means? I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And now it doesn't mean that anymore. It means that you're switching shifts. So how do you fit in life and enjoying family and all of the things that you become accustomed to before you jumped back into the PhD boat?
Sure. I have to be very purposeful. I have to make trade-offs. Sometimes it means, finding specific time to do work. I'm not always good at it, but sometimes, getting up early, doing that work before my workday starts. Finding time over the weekends when I would rather be when I could be doing really anything else, sitting down and reading, writing, transcribing. analyzing data that I have, really finding when specifically this work gets done, because time is a commodity. I have a lot of things that I could be doing otherwise, but I need to be doing my dissertation at the same time. So it really means scheduling the time to do it, finding the time, getting away from distractions, just getting it done.
Yeah, I commend you because I mean, so my work was tied to a lab. So there is no, I mean, there's some things you can do from home. You can write from home, you can read from home, but I can't do my experiments from home. So it's one of those, you have to be in the lab when there's other people there for safety reasons. And some things take a really long time. So I can't just stroll in at any old time and get started unless I want to be there until 5 a.m. And that's just not safe. So there's definitely some differences there. I don't want to say, oh, the luxury to make it seem like, oh, you guys aren't doing anything. I think it's sometimes harder when you don't have the draw to go to the lab because you still have to do it. Yeah, you still have to be committed and pick up the book, go to your computer, and instead of opening up Facebook or opening up the news or opening up a cartoon or YouTube, you actually do some real work. Or you check your email and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Like you have to actually force yourself to get in and do it. So I think that those are the battle is different, but the outcome is the same. And I appreciate you for sharing that because work-life balance is something that we always hear about it, but what it really looks like, one, is different for every person. But I think the misconception is that balance means everything is equal. It means that everything gets attention when you can and when it makes the most sense so that nothing falls. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, from thinking from the perspective of like the social sciences, right? So I'm not tied to a lab. I can do the work. I can do the work when I find time for it, right? Not necessarily when I want to do it. But it can be writing a dissertation can be a very alienating experience, regardless of what your academic path has been. And so it's interesting to realize that there are times that I'll be in my home, but I need to go into this really alienating space when there are other people at home that I'd rather be spending time with, but I need to consciously make that decision to be like, this needs to get done, and it's going to take some sacrifice, right? I have to do this instead of that. I have to make trade-offs, but it's got to get done if you want to do it.
Yeah, I remember that time, and I'm glad it's over. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I start having flashbacks, do you have any advice for someone who is kind of either an undergrad and thinking like, there's this other thing that I'm really interested in that I'm afraid to pursue, or someone who is in a PhD program that's like, I'm not sure if this is for me. I see this other thing that I want to try. Like, what would you say to the undergrad? And then what would you say to someone that's in like a master's or a PhD program?
Sure. I think my recommendation for both is don't do nothing. Like you're not going to figure anything out if all that you're doing is sitting there stewing with yourself and thinking, what if, right? And I think this can generally takes different forms, I think, for different people. I think when you're in undergrad, generally the expectation is that you are there to learn new things. You are there to take courses maybe that you didn't think you would find interesting. And so I really encourage an undergrad to just do it. Just take a class. If you can't find a class, if you can't fit a class into your schedule, just talk to the professor that you may want to talk to in a discipline or that teaches a class that you might find really interesting. Get their perspective, their thoughts, because they may have some other ideas for you as well. Also, I mean, first things first, you should probably also talk to your advisor, right? Have them help you. So your academic advisor, if you've actually declared a major, talk to them and have them help you figure out what it is that you want to do. Because, right, again, you're an undergrad. You're there to try new things, learn new things, go with it. When it comes to being further along in your academic career, I think that it largely depends on the your advisor and the kind of the department that you're in. Um, you know, test out the waters. You definitely don't want to have a conversation or start the balling on rolling on something that may negatively impact your relationship moving forward. Um, I only say that not because I think that that's the status quo, just because like just keep in mind that you want to do things the right way because feelings can get hurt. You are in a PhD program to get a PhD in a specific discipline, right? So presumably, if you're getting a PhD in sociology, now's the time to be like, wait a minute, biology, maybe. But talk to people nonetheless, right? Reach out to other faculty members, really across the board, undergrad or graduate. Your university has a lot of services that you can lean on. If you want to think about just dabble your toes and kind of like take a new course, like that's one way to do it. If you're thinking about it more in terms of a career, like go to your career services department or center or whatever you have at your school. Figure out like what options might be. Get put in touch with alumni who maybe were in a similar situation as you, how they navigated what they thought they wanted to do and what they ended up doing. Talk to not just your career services, but lean on your alumni network as well. Go on LinkedIn, find somebody that does something that sounds interesting to you and just reach out to them. And if they went to the same school, it's totally fine to just lead with, hi, we're both alumni, or I'm a student at the school where you went to. Can we have a conversation? That's totally fine. They may not always get back to you, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. So all of this is to say, don't do nothing, right? Do something.
Yeah. And there's a lot of some things that you gave. So some really good advice. And I think even if you are 100% like, I absolutely am going to do this, and this is the exact path that I want, I think that even entertaining some other ideas or some other variations and flavors is a healthy thing to do to reinforce that, yeah, this really is what I want to do. Like, that's interesting over there. That's cool. But this is still really where I want to be. So I think that encouraging that kind of exploration early on is a good thing. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been such a pleasure. I like you a lot. You're still a great friend, but also I value your opinion, and just thank you for sharing your life. It's not just, you can't talk about going through school without talking about life that goes along with it. So it's a very personal thing. So I really appreciate your time and your openness to share with people who are in the same spot as you, or who may end up there or know someone there. Because I think we all know someone who has some doubt about where they're going and needs some encouragement to not do nothing. It's like, did I say that right? There's so many negatives in there. I'm not sure. Go do something.
Go do something. There we go.
I'm going to switch it up. Go do something. But thank you so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to have you back for something. I'm going to figure something out, because this is great. Thank you.
You know where I live.
Well, what a journey, right? If you watch the whole thing, like if you saw each clip and you put the whole interview together, this man has experienced some things. He's experienced some life, and he is happy where he is. So there are definitely some twists and some turns, some self-doubt, lots of reflection and decision making that was less than popular, but it worked out and it's working out. So please be encouraged. Just because your path doesn't look like the one that's on TV, that it doesn't match what your career counselor says it should match, that doesn't mean that there isn't success on the other side. Your success story is your success story, and it's not finished being written. Your story will look different. And even if you're surrounded by other success stories and yours doesn't look like that, don't be discouraged. Your story is just a new perspective that will be added on, that will encourage someone else to keep going when their story doesn't fit the mold. Do what you need to do to get what you need to be successful and happy in life. And successful isn't just dollar signs. Yeah, it's helpful, right? You need to be able to buy the basic needs of life, provide shelter and those things. But chasing the dollar at the end of the day is going to leave you feeling empty. Follow your heart, follow your passion. You have permission to do what will take care of you and nourish you and make you whole and help you contribute to making the world a better place for the people around you. I hope that this interview series was helpful, that you gained a lot of information and encouragement and all of the things. And we'll get back to our regular format of just me ranting about something. Not really ranting, but you know what I'm talking about. Soon. So enjoy yourself, make it a great day, and I'll see you back here. Bye.